Hello everyone and welcome to the final week of English 1510. This is the final week for two sections, A8109 and A8110, two sections ending on Wednesday, July 13th. The final submission timeline there is 11:30 p.m. for the argumentation. A couple of students have extensions on things that we've been discussing. That's gone very well for those of you that contact me about extenuating circumstances. We've addressed some of those things and making sure that the items are in. For some students, there simply has not been enough work submitted. I simply do not see a way that any passing grade could be feasible on that. There are a couple of students in this class that are in that category for different reasons. For those of you who've been in contact with me, you know what we're working out in that regard. For those of you who have not, there are only two options on this that I'll discuss in a moment. One being just accepting the failing grade or contacting to try and drop the course yourself, or requesting the WS grade, which I will talk about in a moment. And just remember, I do not ever have anyone in any section right now that qualifies for an incomplete as far as I can see, so that would be a discussion that probably wouldn't go very far. It has in the situations with these, it has to meet a bunch of different criteria to be considered for that. But there are some students where I can justify a WS grade if it's requested. So the final overview video, I will post this Tuesday at 12:30 once the final submissions have been reviewed. I am nearly done with all outlines, so I should be posting every outline feedback for argumentation by this afternoon. All other drafts and credit and things are done. If points aren't up for those in a certain category, like a final draft on rhetorical analysis, and I do have two students in this section, I believe, with memoir final drafts where I'm still posting those, but that was more of a file access issue. Some students still had some issues with submission things on there, and it's kind of caused problems back and forth. Being able to review things is only possible when all the files are correct. So in any event, those final things we posted up today, anything that's already been completed, those submissions have been reviewed. Grades will be posted on anything else no later than tomorrow afternoon. But the argumentation outlines are the first thing I'm focusing on right now, getting back some time today for the students to make sure that when you're finalizing your essay over the next 24 hours for the final submission tomorrow night by 11:30 on the argumentation with the 10 sources. Make sure that you've reviewed this stuff, guys. I've given feedback as extensively as I can on the commentary posted before, the summary and working thesis, the primary points of support, and now the outline. There shouldn't be much of an issue there where students are going through and still having problems. Remember some of the primary things. No block quotes, no lines over 3 in your essay from a quoted source. I didn't approve any block quotes for this assignment. It's not that extensive of an argumentation piece. So the video will be posted right here. Final feedback and comments and final gradings, WS requests. I'll talk about that now. The final feedback, comments, and final grades. I have posted feedback on mostly everyone's items. As far as I know, there are only a handful of students where it hasn't been the case for extenuating circumstances on those their end on those. But we have the basic framing on this is the feedback, comments, drafting stages. Remember, drafting were credit-based, so that's one thing to make sure to remember. Credit-based drafting feedback. If you needed sentence level, line-by-line feedback on those, you needed to go through tutoring. That's been since the beginning of the term, and for some of you, I made special recommendations for those. And I only have a couple of students who followed through on that. I have more students who have just kind of not done the total or correct work throughout the term, rather than even reaching out to me, but let alone that not going through the ASE tutoring, which, remember, 2 free sessions per week have been providing your tuition for those very things. If you need some review like that on the drafting stage for sentence level and grammar mechanics, whatever it is, take it through there, get the extra credit from me, forward the form, get the extra credit from me, and also get that proofread. I've been monitoring content on drafting stages and giving full feedback on summary outlines and the peripheral pre-writing things, and then moving into final on the draftings. With argumentation, now it's going to be summary and thesis, primary points of support, and then the outline today with all feedback on those. So make sure that you make note of that, folks. I have some students where it's just not the case that you'll be able to pass through because enough progress wasn't made. But the other thing on there with the rough draft on, when we're talking about the memoir, the vast majority of students did pretty darn good on the memoir. I did have a couple of students where I made a comment about 700 words. You didn't have to have 750 on the drafting for memoir. I think it was a little shorter. So if that was a comment in there, but I really didn't take many points for that to begin with. I will address those on some of those. The majority of students with the memoir rough draft that were marked down, it was because the entire format and everything was way off. I really didn't take, maybe a point for it not meeting word count on those. I usually don't go too hard on that, but it is when the content things are just incorrect. If the layout is wrong, MLA format hasn't been followed. I've been really surprised this term how many students simply did not follow basic MLA formatting. And also surprised at how little some students have actually done reading and review. I mean, some students, it's been glaringly obvious that there has not been an overview or a single portion of the textbook read throughout all the assigned readings throughout the whole term. Remember, in this course schedule down here, there have been readings assigned for most weeks, right? Fifth week, 11 and 12 in edition 3, 12 and 13 here. 11 and 12 again, and then here 24, 22. I mean, this has been since the beginning of the term. We've covered everything through it, particularly for the ones we've needed for the term. The week 8, the rhetorical analysis final draft was due on Sunday. If you didn't get that in, remember, for some students, not having these final components will be the difference between passing and failing. Argumentation final week, the final draft is due tomorrow night at 11:30 p.m. Is the latest. And then if those things are not in and are included this week, then they will not be included on final grading, and they will not be included for the term. And for some of you, that could be the difference between a pass and a fail. Now, having said all of that, here on note 3, WS grade, if a student has enough work completed for the term, and they've made progress, and they've made attempts, and they've been in everything, and they've tried to complete as much as they possibly can throughout the term, the technical ceiling, or the technical floor for this, is sort of like an incomplete, starting at around 70 to 80% of the work. The incomplete is you have to be 75% or higher in the work completed. I believe it's 80% now with the actual technical rule of the school. And has to have all been complete and on time, nothing missed, no classes missed, all those different things in order to consider an incomplete. It has to be essentially that all you're missing is the final stage of argumentation at this time, and you need time to complete that. I don't have that with any student that I have in any of these classes that I'd be willing to consider an incomplete. But the WS grade, this is if you're close in that area, you've been trying, but circumstances have come up throughout the term, and you just weren't able to complete some of the work. And if that's you in this case, where you fell behind and you got most of the things done and most of the things in, and we can justify considering it around a 70% completion, 70-75%, and it really was an attempt to get the things done and get them done correctly, and I've had things to at least post grades on throughout the term. Students that made it up into the rhetorical analysis, let's say final drafting stage there, but coming into argumentation, things started to fall apart for you. If you request a WS grade from me, okay, I will consider it. If you're going to make the request, send it through the messaging here at the top of the page so that I get the message from you. Give me your class and section number. Go through instant messaging and send me a message. Do not send it through email. I'm not going to be checking those. I'm not going to be bouncing back and forth between those and messaging and the grading platform and the student assignments and trying to keep all balls in the air while I have to process your final grades by Friday morning and no later. I have to process everything for this class by Thursday night, meaning every submission that does not come in by tomorrow night 11:30 for this will not be included. The other things need to be included as well, or they will not be included in the final grading. Message me if you're requesting a WS grade, and do so by tomorrow at 11:30, because Thursday I will start entering final grades, and for some of you, your final grade with OCC Student Services for the semester will be entered on Thursday. The remainders will be entered Friday morning, if not on Thursday. All argumentation, and with those guys, just remember this. Some students, it appears that you signed up for an online class and lost track of what you were doing. Let this be a lesson for you at the start, for those of you who are in your freshman year especially. Maybe face-to-face would suit you better. Keeping track of everything and following through and doing things on your own at times can be difficult. If you're not accustomed to online, now you got this experience and you know it didn't work out for you. I'm thinking of students who are in the area of these WSs right now, or just flat out failing a class. Face-to-face still take place on campus. We will be offering plenty in the fall at Auburn Hills too. I will be teaching some. There's also an English 1510-E. I will be teaching some of those, as will a few of my colleagues. That is this class, essentially the same layout, content. In a face-to-face environment, there's an E component, which includes an additional instruction hour each week, focused on more of the sentence level things that some of you actually needed. I don't know if it was students coming back to school, students didn't learn grammar, mechanics, punctuation, and style very well in high school, whatever the case may be, or simply weren't doing the reading during this term and forgetting those things. But that kind of stuff is expected to already be understood typically in a 1510, 1520 environment, so that just content is focused on, submission and content. The instructions, following instructions, being able to produce the work. Ideally, I should only have to be, or myself or any other professor running the class should only have to review the work itself, read the content through, and make comments on the content. This class, it's been about a 50-50 split, where I've had students where I can't really get as much to the content because I'm having to figure out what's being said at the sentence level, because there are so many errors with the grammar, mechanics, style, usage, verb tense shifts. I mean, some of this I would put on par with 8th grade writing, middle school writing, 9th grade, 10th grade at the most, and looking at it and going, okay, your issues here are you need additional support. You self-placed into this class, let alone an online class, which doesn't appear to be a good fit. But then you also, with doing that, you also did not understand the basic writing components just at the sentence level to begin with, let alone understanding how to do higher level analysis and those types of things. Rhetorical analysis was very telling in that regard. Those of you who were off on directions and still talking about logos, ethos, and pathos as devices. I mean, that was mentioned in 2 overviews and in the instructions, and you still went in that direction. That shows a number of issues right there, and then most of the writing was off too. The final 2 notes on here. All argumentation drafts must be in by tomorrow night, 11:30 p.m., or they will not be included in the final grades. Final grades entered this Thursday. Any granted extensions on underwork must be submitted by Tuesday at 11:30 p.m. And I will say, unless otherwise noted. So far, I haven't given any extensions beyond that for those students who've been in contact with me, so that is the stopping point. If there was something else that needed to come up, I might grant something, but it's not likely because I need the final submissions. No further draft reductions on memoir or rhetorical analysis. So for those of you who I posted up the rough draft credit on those, remember I made most of the commentary on the summary, outlined those things on those for those pieces. Make sure you read both of those when you submitted your final ones. I'm not taking further reductions, especially if you didn't have further commentary to address.